Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of An Attempt to Fly Under the Radar. This will be Part 8, Chapter 9, entitled The Reckoning Akatsuki Bakugo. Bakugo was called into the principal's office at least 3 times a year, but it was never for anything bad. More often than not, it was so his parents could hear about how he ranked at the top of his class for the entire term. More often than not, it was so he could get another award for something or another that he didn't care to remember. More often than not, it was so his parents could hear the no-name extra sitting behind the desk gush about how Bakugo's high grades and amazing potential would make him a shoo-in for prestigious high schools like UA or Shiketsu. It was so they could ramble on and on about how amazing it would be for a humble school like Aldera to have an amazing alumni like Bakugo among their ranks. Please. They had it all wrong. He was using them, not the other way around. Bakugo had it all planned out since 5th grade. He'd attend a no-name school. His parents almost sent him to fucking Sume, something he and the old hag had gotten into many fights about before she finally relented, and establish himself as one at the top of the food chain before getting into UA and making a name for himself. He'd get first place at every sports festival, work with only the best pro heroes, and then become the #1 hero after graduation. It'd be just like All Might's ride to fame. He had come from a no-name school in Tokyo before making a name for himself at his 2nd and 3rd year sports festivals. After graduation, he spent a few years in North America before returning to Japan and utterly dominating the Japanese hero Billboard chart. It was the perfect underdog story in the script that had been playing out perfectly for Bakugo. Until he began attending UA, that is. Before attending UA, he never got into trouble. Never. Sure, he'd had a few talks with his teachers if he came in a few minutes late or spoke too loudly in class, but they were just talks. They'd pull him aside after class and explain what he did wrong in syrupy, sweet, and calm voices that let him know that he wasn't really in trouble, and that this was just for appearance's sake. So what, if they had to rinse and repeat the routine a few times? It was all because of the fucking extras around him. He was never in any real trouble. That all changed once he started attending UA. Sure, the hobo never outright catered to Bakugo like his previous teachers did, but there was an unspoken agreement that he wouldn't get in trouble for showing the other 18 extras who the top of the food chain belonged to. At most, all he ever got was an exhausted grow up and stop wasting your potential. But the shit he said about him at the press conference, it'd be great for when he became #1 later on. He knew that he had the green light to do as he pleased. It looked like the other teachers didn't get that message. He was either snapped at for speaking up or put in after-school detention for the fucking stupidest things, like speaking too loudly or telling off an extra, minor things that the teachers and the old hag were completely overreacting to. More than once, he caught the banana hair teacher glaring at him like he pissed into cereal during class. Teachers never glared at him before. Teachers never put him in detention before. What the fuck changed from 9th to 10th grade? What the fuck happened to make him and his parents get called to the dogs, rats, bears, weasel's office to be read the riot act and told how much he sucked? This wasn't his role. This was Deku's role. The fucker practically lived in the principal's office for the last 10 years due to everything under the sun, cheating, disrupting class, starting fights, etc. More than once, he'd overheard the teachers talking about putting a reserve sign on the chair outside for Deku alone. They should have gone through with it. It'd show the useless piece of shit his place in life since his lessons obviously weren't sticking. Fuck. Was that why he was waiting outside of the weasel's, mouse, hamster's office? It couldn't be. Not when the hobo closed the matter up with that bullshit house arrest punishment. Why did he suddenly have a problem with him putting Deku in his place? Not like he cared before. It didn't make any sense. Nothing made any fucking sense anymore. First, the quirkless fucker gets a quirk and gets into UA, something they agreed he wouldn't do. Then he rides his coattails to be 4th in the class, another thing they agreed he wouldn't do. Then he gets fucking rescued by the useless sack of shit and his little gang of extras. He was doing just fine without their help. Then he fucking snitches about his lessons, getting him even more on the old hag's bad side. The biggest fuck you of all is him passing the provisional license exam. It had to be rigged against him. There was no fucking way he failed. And now today, the fucker got called to the Mutt's office for a few hours before coming back all chipper and happy, while Bakugo had to sit and wait for his undoubtedly pissed-off parents to hear the bear, polar bear, grizzly bear out. It wasn't fair, and it didn't make any sense. This wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't. 3 things greeted Ochako and the rest of her classmates when classes let out for the day. A black Lexus, a silently fuming brunette man carrying out some boxes, and a livid Bakugo being flanked by a furious woman with more than a passing resemblance to him. Were those Bakugo's parents? Were they moving his things out? Wait, if they were moving his things out, that meant... Expelled! You got yourself fucking expelled from the #1 heroic school in the country, the woman screamed, tossing a loaded box into the truck. You're really fucking amazing, Katsuki. Most kids would take a month's worth of detention as a message to get their shit together, but not you. No, you took that as a message to give your teachers and classmates the finger and do whatever the hell you wanted. Consequences be damned. I got the message, old hag, Bakugo yelled back. You don't need... Katsuki Bakugo, you will not speak to your mother like that, the man quietly warned, turning to glare at his son. The boy in question curled his lip in disgust, but kept quiet. You've already embarrassed yourself as well as us with your behavior today. Don't make things worse for yourself. Ochako gaped, and she could hear her other classmates muttering to one another in shock. Bakugo got expelled? But how? Why? No, she shouldn't ask that. Of course she knew why. Everyone in class did, not that they'd ever come out and admit it. It had something to do with the fight from 3 days ago. Everything had been so weird since then. She knew that he was upset about failing the licensing exam. How could he not have failed with the way he was acting? But him dragging Deku out for a fight to take his anger out on him was a new low. No, it wasn't. It was on brand for him. Then the both of them were put on house arrest for it, which was just mind-boggling for her. Deku never looked for a fight. Anyone who had been around him for more than a day could realize it. So why was he also punished? Why did everyone accept Mr. Aizawa's story as fact? Even Ida took things at face value, leading the two of them to get into a small argument about it during lunch. He was one of Deku's best friends, and best friends believe in one another no matter what the stakes are. How could he just blindly accept the fact that Deku was also at fault for what had happened? Their bespectacled friend was changing his tune by that evening, as was everyone else. Sero had been teasing Bakugo about a tiny amount of dust on the common room windowsill, and of course he chose to take it out on Deku, who was at the kitchen table with Todoroki. No one had spoken up in his defense, and he seemed to be trying to ignore it before the blonde advanced towards him, explosives at the ready. That shook a few of them out of their stupor. Kirishima tried holding him back, but was roughly pushed away. Ida and Ochako both got up ready to do what they should have been doing this whole time, and protect their friend. But Todoroki acted swiftly and harshly. She had to admit, the hit to Bakugo's face with his English textbook would have made Gunhead proud, same with the ensuing beatdown in the courtyard. Maybe she should recommend him to Gunhead for their upcoming work studies. In the ensuing chaos that followed, she couldn't help but feel glad that someone finally put the blonde in his place. He had gotten away with far too much, and she knew that not only were they to blame, but Mr. Aizawa was as well. Ever since he'd threatened to expel them all on the first day, she hadn't really trusted the man. She could see that he had something against Deku starting with the quirk assessment test, and he'd been constantly singling him out ever since. She remembered the differences in feedback after the battle trials. Bakugo had nearly killed Deku, and all he got was a, "Grow up. Stop wasting your talent and stop sulking like a child about your loss." Izuku had been defending himself and got a, "I see the only way you won the match was by messing up your arm again. Work harder, and don't give me the excuse that you don't have control over your quirk. That line's getting old. You can't keep breaking your body while training here, but your quirk will be really useful if you can get a handle on it, so show a little urgency, huh?" Clearly he didn't like Deku. Ochako could tell as much, and it was a topic of discussion amongst her classmates as well. Man, if he's this mad about Midoriya hurting himself with his quirk, how's he going to feel about me short-circuiting when I overuse my quirk? Kaminari had nervously asked before homeroom once. Hey, you don't know that for sure. Sero had tried reassuring him. I mean, I really hate to say it, but what if it's just Midoriya he has a problem with? Ochako had glared at him, and he shot his hands up in defense. I'm not saying that it's okay or anything. I think it's really messed up, and Midoriya's a cool guy and all, but come on, Uraraka. He's the only one Mr. Aizawa gets onto. Incredibly unprofessional behavior, Tokiyami had said, his head bowed in thought. He's a really scary guy, Ashido said, quivering in her seat. We'll just have to do everything we can to stay off his radar. Ochako had wanted to say more, but the man in question stepped into the room, cutting their conversation short. Those first 2 days of school set up a pattern that was to become routine for everyone. Bakugo would bully Deku, and Mr. Aizawa would do nothing to correct him. Deku had tried diffusing the situation by saying they were childhood friends, but Ochako knew that on some level it wasn't true. That didn't stop her from naively hoping that the two would set aside whatever was wrong between them and be friends again. God, she was so stupid. What childhood friend treated someone like Deku the way Bakugo did? Nothing about their interactions with one another screamed childhood friendship, and she should have seen through that claim as soon as it escaped Deku's lips. He was her best friend, and she should have done more to protect him. They all should have done more to protect him. They all should have gotten their textbooks and joined Todoroki in his beatdown of Bakugo. Maybe then they could feel a sense of victory and vindication in seeing a humiliated Bakugo being kicked out of UA. "Those your classmates?" Bakugo's mother asked as they came to a stop outside of the dorms. "Bow your head and give them the apology of your fucking life for what all you put them through." Bakugo growled and clenched his fists. "I'd rather die than apologize to these fucking extras," he yelled. "I didn't do anything wrong. It's that shitty Deku's fault for not minding his fucking place." "Hey, that's messed up," Kirishima reproached, a troubled frown on his face. "Midoriya's never—" "Oh, fuck off, shitty hair," Bakugo snapped. "It's not as if I give a shit about what you have to think." The redhead winced. "That hurts," he muttered. "Who gives a fuck? You're all just a bunch of no-name—" "Katsuki, that's enough," Bakugo's mother hissed under her breath, grabbing his forearm and pulling him close. He opened his mouth to yell some more, but Todoroki, coming out with the trash in one hand and his heavy physics textbook in the other, quieted him down in an instant. Her friend's facial expression was as stoic as ever, but the threat was clear as day. "Keep insulting my classmates and friends, and I'll re-break your bones in front of your parents." Taking advantage of their new former classmate's silence, Ochako stepped forward. She hadn't done a good job defending Deku in the past, so she decided to say her piece while she still could. She owed him that much, at least. "You're a selfish coward, Bakugo," she spat, glaring at him. "You always felt so threatened by Deku, standing up for himself and growing stronger." "I'm sorry, but did you just call Midoriya Deku?" Bakugo's father asked, his voice much kinder and softer than it had been moments ago. Ochako felt her resolve falter slightly as she nodded. Yes, sir. It's his hero name, and he said it was okay for me to call him that." Bakugo's mother sucked her teeth as she gave her son a glare that could kill. "How many times have we told you to stop calling him that?" she snapped. "You really do think that you're so fucking high and mighty that you don't have to listen to anyone, not even your own parents?" "No one gave a fuck." "I dare you to finish that sentence, Katsuki. I fucking dare you," his mother hissed into his ear. "What's the issue?" Kaminari asked. "It's what Midoriya picked as a hero name." "It's short for Dekunobu, kid," Bakugo's mother cut in a brusque but softer voice. "It means useless, and we've been trying to get Katsuki to stop calling him that for years." Everyone sat in shock at that revelation. Seriously? Wasn't it just established that Bakugo was a bully? Why is everyone so surprised that he'd been calling Midoriya by an insult this entire time? "Don't be a hypocrite, Ochako. You also called him Deku. Don't act like you're any better than they are." "Dude, what the hell?" Sero whispered. "My point is that Midoriya was becoming his own person, and you saw that as a threat," Ochako continued, letting her anger at Bakugo, her classmates, Mr. Aizawa, and herself fuel her. "You thought that your quirk made you God's gift to everyone around you, and that gave you an excuse to bully him. You thought that was an excuse to bully us as well. Well, to me, you're nothing more than a pathetic excuse of a hero in training who peaked in middle school. The other teachers may turn a blind eye to behavior, but I won't, and neither will we. Now that you've been expelled from UA, no hero school will want to take you. You'll never become a hero, and you have no one to blame but yourself." She could see Bakugo barely resist the urge to roll his eyes, wincing as his mother pulled him over to the Lexus. "Get the fuck inside," she hissed as she opened the backseat door. "We're going to have a long fucking talk about your behavior when we get home." As he obliged her, and the door slammed shut, the two adults faced Ochako and her classmates, bowing their heads in remorse. "We apologize for taking up your afternoon, and we apologize for the trouble our son has caused you," Bakugo's father said. "I truly wish we could have met under better circumstances." "We knew that Katsuki had been growing more out of control as he grew up, and we knew his teachers were letting it happen, but we couldn't imagine it ever getting this bad," Bakugo's mother added. "As his parents, we should have done more to get him under control. Thank you for at least trying to put up with him, and thank you for rescuing him in July." The two adults gave their farewells, and within minutes, the Lexus was driving away, taking Katsuki Bakugo and his belongings out of Ochako and Class 1A's life forever. He would most definitely not be missed. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 9 of An Attempt to Fly Under the Radar. Chapter 10 will be up next. I hope you all are still enjoying this one. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this whole chapter on Katsuki, and I like the fact that the author put a lot of this chapter in Ochalko's perspective. I thought that was really cool. So let me know your thoughts and reactions, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.